So now that we've reached the end of 2021, I wanted to make a video that recapped my goals from last year, some of the things that I plan to do this year, as well as some of those things that I thought I could improve on from last year's goals. So jumping straight into it, last year I had three main goals, and the first one was to start investing more into my standard brokerage account. The second one was to open up a Roth IRA and start investing into that. The third one was to buy my first home. And the last one was to start a side hustle. So jumping straight into my first goal, last year I decided that I wanted to start investing more into my Robinhood account. And I started to notice that there were some months where I would invest a ton of money, and then there were a couple months where I would invest not so much. Overall though, I did invest a lot into my standard brokerage account, and I'm glad that I did. I invested somewhere between $10,000 to $25,000. I'd have to go back and look at exactly how much I invested in. However, there were a couple months where I didn't invest at all, and what I want to do this year is set up a reoccurring withdrawal from my bank account into Robinhood so that I am at least investing a minimum amount every month. Now, when the market's not doing so well, I'm going to invest some more money, because those opportunities when the market's not doing well is usually when you see the best returns. But at least when the market is flat or it's doing better, I'm at least investing that withdrawal that I'm setting up. Now, jumping into my second goal, that was to start a Roth IRA, and after some weeks of research, I opened up an account through Vanguard. Now, I opened an account and I invested an initial $200, but after that, I told myself I'm going to figure out what mutual funds I want to invest in, and days, weeks, and months went by, and I haven't invested any more than my initial $200. Now, what I want to do this year is set up the same reoccurring investments from my bank account into my Roth. That's going to help me invest more because the money's already going to be in that account. And what I'm also going to do is figure out which mutual funds I want to invest in. Now, I'm also going to be picking some individual stocks, but I'm going to go into my plan in a later video. But from at least withdrawing from my bank account into my Roth IRA, that's going to help me invest more than my initial $200 that I invested in last year. Wasn't very good, but at least I know that that is going to help me out. Now, for the set amount, I plan to invest $3,000 this year. So that comes out to $500 a month that I want to, no, less than that, $250 a month that I want to invest on a month-to-month basis. All right, so now the third goal was to buy my first home. Now, last year was an interesting year. With the pandemic going on, it just made buying a home ridiculous, and all the houses were going off the market within a week, sometimes a day. And if you offered a certain price, then the seller would counteroffer with something even higher than what you offered. So everything was going above asking price. Houses were going out in weeks to days. Sometimes you would go in, it would go into the market, and the seller would have so many offers that it was just on the market for 24 hours. But with all that going on, I managed to buy a house under asking price, and then I'm going to talk about that in another video, but I'm glad I did find a house under asking. It took a little bit longer because of some situations, and that taught me a lot of things that I didn't know going into it. And I think that the situation with the pandemic and houses going out at such a fast rate, as well as the situation that happened with my house particularly, taught me a lot, and going into the next house, it's going to be a lot easier. So I'm glad I bought a house when I did, and I'm going to talk about that in another video, but I think I learned a lot going through that process. Now, my fourth goal was to start a side hustle. So last year, I attempted to start a couple things, and I think the main reason why none of them actually fell through was because there was just so much going on. I'm working my full-time job, I'm working a part-time job, I bought my house, and just life going on. It just didn't leave enough time for me to allocate into a side hustle. So this year I do plan to change some things around, and hopefully come the end of the year I am going to have a successful side hustle. Now, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be generating money off of them, but it's something that I'm doing and it's growing, and hopefully it's something that I can continue to do. Now, for what I plan to do, I obviously plan to start a YouTube channel and hopefully grow that account, as well as start an e-commerce, because I just think that there's so much growth in that industry right now, and there's so many people that you can reach out to. So that business strategy to me makes the most sense, as well as the flexibility with that kind of side hustle, with you being able to do it from anywhere. If I ever decide to go on a trip or anything, I can continue to work on that as long as I have internet connection. So those are my four main goals last year, and this year I plan to continue those goals and improve on them, and I've also set up a couple more goals for myself, but I plan to talk about that in another video, to talk about what my goals are for this year, what I plan to do, how I outlined it so that it is in actionable steps, because that's one thing that I didn't do last year. I came up with 4 goals, but they were just goals that sometimes seemed unachievable because they were just so far from where I currently was. So this year what I plan to do was I set up some goals and I broke them down into small steps that I can do, so that each micro goal seems very obtainable, so that hopefully the result goal gets achieved. Alright, well, with that said, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.